What's going on, guys? Today I just wanted to do another video and address why I had left Pilot as a fuel hauler and I instead came to Love's or Gemini Motor Transport, and just give my perspective on the differences working day to day at Pilot versus at Love's. So just as a general disclaimer, I'm not here to talk trash about Pilot or anything like that, because overall it was a good experience. That being said, also as another disclaimer, somebody had said on the last video that my volume was really low, so I'm trying to experiment with recording in different places and seeing if that helps. Otherwise, I can try and adjust the volume on the back end there. But just let me know how the audio goes, or how it is down in the comments below. But getting into it, so at Pilot, I started at Pilot June of 2023. And I was there up until about September of last year. So it was about a year and 3 months, 15 months that I was there. And for Pilot, we hauled doubles here in Wyoming, and that's going to be the major difference day-to-day working experience between Pilot and Love's, at least here in Wyoming, because in Wyoming I don't haul doubles. It's just a single regular tank trailer. So at Pilot we were hauling about, on average, 10,000 gallons of diesel and then about 11,000 gallons of gas. So that is something that was different day to day. That is obviously more risky, more gallons, more liability on your end. But it was overall a good experience. It forced me to really be cognizant of where I was going, because with doubles, unless that second trailer on the fifth wheel has a locking fifth wheel, you're not going to be able to back up. If you back up about 20 feet, your second trailer is going to jackknife into your first trailer. So especially with that in consideration, you really have to be aware of where you're going, how you're going to get there, because the only way you're going to be able to correct your direction of travel is by U-turn, more or less. So with that being said, it was just a very good exercise in always being aware of your surroundings, right? So as well, with Pilots, the day-to-day working experience again, that aside, the doubles aside, it was the same thing. You show up, do your pre-trip, get your loads done, do your post-trip, go home. There wasn't any micromanagement. There wasn't any pushing for me to do safe or illegal things, nothing like that. They weren't shorting my paychecks, unlike my first fuel hauling company, which was on load pay, and I'll be doing a separate video about that. But aside from that, it was pretty much the same experience. It was good overall. I started out at $31 an hour because I was on nights. I was 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. and I think I had Thursdays and Fridays off, something like that, if I'm not mistaken. But I was also paid overtime. Pilot pays their employees overtime after 40 hours, so similar dynamic there. I was also paid weekly there. And so when I had first moved over, I started working quite a bit, and when I hit my year mark, my gross year mark, or year to date, was 121,000 for my first year at Pilot, which was solid money. However, I had to work a hell of a lot more to hit that mark. And so when I'm comparing Love's and Pilot, obviously my gross year to date here at Pilot for what I earned was about $7,000 higher. It was about $128,000, but I worked only 57 hours a week, versus at Pilot I was averaging 64 hours a week pretty consistently, along with I had worked over that first year 10 6-day weeks where I was pushing my 70-hour clock. And when you're doing that mostly at night, as I was for a majority of that year, that starts to burn you out. especially through the winter when you're dealing with hazardous conditions as well. But either way, so going back to pilot, first 10 months I was on night shift, 9-10 months, and then about May of last year I got a day shift, and which is almost unheard of. So only after 9 or 10 months I got a 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. shift with Friday and Saturday off. And again, from my understanding, that's pretty much unheard of within the fuel hauling industry. You're generally going to be spending about 2 to 3 years on average on night shift before you get a decent day shift. And so in the calculus of if I was going to come to Love's or not, that certainly was a huge factor in what I had to consider, because schedule-wise, it doesn't really get much better than that, especially with Friday and Saturday off. So I was also in a great truck. I was in a Kenworth T880, and I had a 13-speed manual. It was a hoot to drive, really. And overall, I was pretty happy with my experience at Pilot. The issue became when I started to look around. I had already developed, as I was on nights at Pilot, I had already developed a relationship with one of the drivers here at Gemini Motor Transport, just in the rare circumstance that they had an opening, because from the very beginning, and shout out to KDS Trucking again, and shout out to also Dirty Broke 215, because they had put the bug in my ear a long time ago, probably about 3 years ago, that I ultimately wanted to come to Gemini Motor Transport because of their testimonies on what it was like to work for the company itself. I also was just trying to look long term. Previously in my trucking career, I was just focused on the short term, and recently, within the last few years, I had a shift into focusing on what would be better for me in the long term, and just trying to shift that paradigm in my head. So when the opening came available, I had to consider obviously the pay differences, and for me, at the time, when I had gone back to day shift, I was at 30 and a half an hour, and the opening that they had at Love's was starting off at $36 an hour. So it's a $5.50 an hour pay difference, and that also was affected by overtime. So that's pretty substantial. Now, I'm happy to say for the Pilot guys, they had actually about 6 months ago now gotten a raise. And so now their base pay is $32 an hour, and I believe their top pay is $34 an hour. So hopefully that continues, because competition is great for everybody. So at the time, that was what I was having to consider, is the $5.50 an hour difference in pay, as well as at Pilot, they don't give you guaranteed yearly raises or guaranteed raises at any specific time frame. It's just kind of a sporadic thing that happens based on market demand, but they don't have guaranteed pay raises at all. It's just more of a every couple of years, generally, you can kind of sort of expect one, but you're not going to be able to count on it, and the company does not promise one at all either. And going back to my long-term thinking, I wanted to make more money as time went on into the future, and that requires, generally speaking, raises if your company offers them. So I then had to look at the differences between the benefits at Pilot and Love's, aside from the pay. And starting off with vacation time at Pilot, I got 2 weeks of paid vacation, and it was paid out a little bit differently. I think it was paid out in 11-hour increments of your regular rate, if I'm not mistaken. But that was it. You got 2 weeks of paid vacation. That was pretty much it. With Love's Gemini Motor Transport, you get a week after your 6-month mark of paid vacation, and then you get 2 more weeks after a year. So a total of 3 weeks within your first year. You also get 4 paid personal holidays that you get every single year that are use or lose. And then you also, on top of that, get sick leave that accrues on a weekly basis. So pretty much 4 weeks of paid vacation that you earn within your first year here. So that was a pretty substantial difference as well. And then moving into the other benefits, such as the difference in healthcare, as far as the difference offerings. We have United, which is the same at Pilot, but here at Love's, they have a HSA plan that they contribute to on behalf of you, so it's extra free money. The cap is $2,000 per year, if I'm not mistaken, for the HSA contribution from Love's into your health savings account. And at Pilot, they didn't contribute anything. For me personally, and it's going to vary depending upon, I think, how many family members you have, and then they contribute, for me, $375 every single quarter into my HSA, and that adds up quite a bit over time, especially if you're not using it on a regular basis for health insurance costs or any medical stuff that you have to pay for. So that certainly adds up. Another big place that it is substantial is in the 401ks between the two different companies. At Pilot, it was a 6% match up to 60%, and at Love's, it is a 5% match, dollar for dollar, 100% match. And I'm not sure exactly how that math works out off the top of my head, but you can play with an investment calculator with a 401k match to see how it is better. But I did the math myself, and it is quite a bit better over the years. And then moving on from the 401k to longevity bonuses. At Pilot, there's no longevity bonuses at all. You know, somebody who has 20 years at Pilot is, number one, getting paid the same as somebody who just finished training, and they're also not compensated at any point in time for that time in the form of bonuses at Pilot, versus here at Love's, Gemini Motor Transport, we have significant bonuses every 5 years, I should say. So 5-year mark, you get a $15,000 bonus. 10-year mark, you get a $20,000 bonus. Same thing for the 10-year mark, or 15-year mark, you get another $20,000, and then at 20 years, you get a $25,000 bonus. So it's a pretty significant incentive to stay with the company long term, and I hope that changes for Pilot. I hope they up their game on that, but until then, that was something that was quite a big draw for me as well. Going into just the overall picture, I wanted to obviously do less work and get paid more, and for my specific scenario with having to do doubles at Pilot versus doing just a single trailer here and having to go through pretty harsh winters here in Wyoming, that was another big consideration, just doing less work and getting paid more for it, as well as just the shift. And this is something that went in Pilot's favor, because again, 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. Friday, Saturdays off, that's pretty solid, and I was losing that. And I'm not gonna lie, I do kind of miss that schedule. I was going to, from that schedule at Pilot to what I'm at now, which is 5:30 p.m. to 5:30 a.m. with Wednesdays and Thursdays off. Ultimately, when I looked at the entire picture, and that's what I was looking at, what the details I just gave you there, I decided that I should move forward with Love's when the opening came open, and ultimately I got the job. But if the opening hadn't come, or I hadn't gotten hired, I would still be at Pilot, and ultimately it was a good experience. It was a great place to get doubles experience, and ultimately a good place to work as well. When you compare the two apples to apples, it's pretty obvious which one is better. That's obviously not going to be the case for every single market, certainly with the pay differences, but that's on the whole what I was looking at, and that's why I left Pilot. That being said, if you guys have any other questions or comments about what it was like working at Pilot, or why else I came to Loves, you can certainly leave them in the comment section down below. If you guys found this video helpful, please give me a like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. God bless.